Here I have beef from two different places. These from Field to Fork Meats in Idaho, and these I just picked up the other day at our local grocery store. We're going to cook these the same. We're going to season them very lightly, just with salt, so that we can focus on simply the beef flavor in this taste testing and see what the difference is. Majority of people in America are not familiar with what it's like to buy their beef or any of their products directly from the producer. In this case, Field to Fork Meat is selling their beef products directly to the buyer without a corporate middleman. It is very likely and very possible that meat like this was actually raised in countries like Brazil, Mexico, or even Japan. Next, we're gonna get these seasoned and throw them on the grill. All right guys, so here we've got our ranch grown steak from Field to Fork Meat. On this side, we've got our store-bought top round steak. Store-bought beef first.
Pretty decent.
Not bad. Now let's try the beef from the ranch. That is a fantastic texture.
That's great. That's awesome.
You know, love that. Well, what do you think your honest verdict is?
Honestly, the ranch raised is way better. It's better flavor, better texture overall. Better flavor, better texture. Honestly, I like it a lot more.
I absolutely agree. Yep. Honestly, the texture, the juiciness, just that feel, so much more of that meaty beef flavor that I love so much really came through on the Field to Fork Meat. It just feels dulled down with this, and I hate to say I'm not surprised just knowing how this goes, but
let's eat the rest of this.
I think I need to go find out what is so different about this beef and the cows that produce this meat. Yep. So let's go check it out, guys. Field to Fork is a cooperatively owned ranching operation in Idaho, run by Jennifer and Carrie Foster and Jessica and Josh Jones. But what is it that sets them apart from your average family rancher? As opposed to selling their calves to livestock buyers, Field to Fork has their animals from start to finish and sell their meat directly to the consumer. They're not only committed to producing the highest quality beef, but also showing their customers how their beef was raised. Jennifer is a longtime friend of mine, and she invited me up to their ranches to see how they do things.
We were talking to Jennifer and Carrie kind of about this situation because we're in McCall, it's hard to feed year-round up here. Just the expense and cost of providing hay for cattle for 7 months out of the year gets pretty expensive until the grass is up and ready to grow. And so just talking to them about kind of some scenarios and what we could do, and kind of learning about what was actually going on in the beef industry, and all the things that we didn't even know about at that point were happening, and so after talking with them, we decided that this is kind of the route we wanted to go. We wanted to ultimately have our own herd of cattle and be able to raise that from birth to butcher, and have control of that whole process and be able to provide that for other people.
Yeah, I think for me, I grew up on a dairy farm in Boise, and I didn't want to milk cows morning and night. I wasn't real great at getting up real early in the morning. So we came up here and got into ranching, and I was mostly running horses, and then we'd run cattle during the summer for people. And in that conversation that we had with Jennifer and Carrie, it really honestly started out as a money thing. It's like, how do we make more money so we can keep doing what we love to do? And I think a lot of ranchers face that, is we don't go into it for the money. Nobody really goes into ranching if they've been around it very long and thinks I'm going to make a ton of money. We just want to keep the lifestyle, and So usually those money decisions are kind of based around, how do we keep living this way? How do we keep raising these animals and make enough to do it? And so we hatched with them this idea that we would sell direct to consumer and take out those middlemen.
I have a very similar background as Jessica and Jennifer. I mean, like as far as being raised in a rural area, we had some dairy cows, we had, horse stock. We also had, my grandparents, same thing. And we had a few milk cows and helped the neighbors milk theirs too when they were gone. So, just raised in the ag industry area, I guess. And then just kind of transitioned, like Josh said, the story of just ate whatever I wanted and, whenever. And then finally started realizing that when we started into this thing, we were like, hey, this is not the best for us, And as we get a little older, our bodies may start to revolt just a little bit, and so you think of stuff that, hey, maybe this is a good solution to, joints that hurt every day or something. And I know a lot of people that have started eating clean and have had great success with that. So, kind of for me, a lot of it is the health and just trying to live a better lifestyle and live better in the years that I've got left here. So.
Well, like Jessica said, we just grew up with ranching and working cows and horses, and so it's just really, for me, in my blood. I just can't imagine living life without doing that. And so then that kind of, like what Josh said, so how do you make that work that you can afford to do it, right? And so then, same as everybody else here, the further we got into it, the more you learn, the more you are just appalled at what's been going on, and just feeling the need to try and educate people and get things turned around, so that one, that America can feed itself, and two, that we can eat some clean food that's not washed in chemicals. And so yeah, there's just so many levels about it for all of us. I think that it's just really important to try and make those changes.
So in one form or another, all of you kind of came from that rural community background. You were in agriculture in one form or another over the course of your lives. And I'm guessing all of you have known, as many people as you have known who've worked in ranching, have seen a lot of people pushed out of it, right? And a lot of people who weren't able to find a way to make it work out financially or whatever it was. So did that kind of contribute to, kind of like you were saying, that you wanted to find a way to keep it sustainable? What was kind of the, why was this attractive, I guess? Why was this the direction you took on that end?
I think it was just like, how do we hold on to what we have? And how do we preserve that for future generations? And, honestly, we were kind of racking our brains on, well, how do we make this land sustainable to sustain our family and a future family? So that's kind of where it all started is, how do we make this work? What can we do?
And I think it started as a personal thing, but it affects everybody else too that's not in agriculture and ranching, right? Because we've always been able to go to the grocery store and just get what we want, and you don't put much thought into that until COVID hit, and then all of a sudden people realized there's no meat on the shelves. And they couldn't get what they were used to, and it made a lot of people start thinking, where does my meat come from, and how am I going to make sure that I have a sustainable way to feed my family even when things go to pot like they did. So there's been so many families that have been pushed out of agriculture for financial reasons. We're losing, I think in the last 5 years alone, we've lost an average of 21,000 cattle producers and over 50,000 farmers and ranchers. In the last 5 years, we lost 87,000 feedlots. And we've gone to where we were a net exporter of beef, and now we're a net importer of beef. And these big four companies that control 80% of the market, as they get bigger and bigger and bigger, we become more and more susceptible to a pandemic or natural disasters or war, anything like that. All of a sudden, when you centralize that much power into these 4 big meat packing companies. If things go south, then really bad things can happen, right?
This is all you have to do, Josh, is go into the store on a Saturday night after everyone's shopped all day and the shelves are, you know, a third of the way empty at least. And that's one day, you know. And so, yeah, to his point, if the transportation hub shuts down, if for whatever reason that happens, and people don't think to store anything anymore.
It's such a staple food source in America. We consume a lot of beef, and you talking about how the number of producers in this country is going down, that doesn't mean the amount of beef being sold goes down, right? It just changes where it comes from. When do we see that shift from when we were a net producer, exporter of beef to an importer?
I don't know exactly when it happened. It's been more recently, but it's been happening. I know about 50 years ago is when the change really started to happen. 50 years ago, 68% of beef sales, the profit would go back to a producer. So on every dollar, 68 cents would go to the producer. During the COVID pandemic, it was 27%. And then, so it completely flipped to where that 68, 70% was going to the retailers and the meat packers. So it's over that 50-year period, it's been steadily marching towards changing, you know, who controls the meat and where it comes from and how it's processed.
What would you guys say are some things that the average American buyer is just unaware of about this industry? What are things that they should know about that would help?
I think one of the things that we discovered is a thing called pink slime, where they wash the meat in anhydrous ammonia, and then what's left of that, then they mix back in to our hamburger.
Jeez, that's
right?
They make it really cute sounding, though. They call it lean, finely textured meat. This is the technical term for it, but it looks like pink slime. So it used to be that 50 years ago, there was a bunch of carcass plants out there, so you'd actually butcher a cow and then you'd dry age the carcass for 14 days to 21 days, and that was a way to ensure that you didn't have E. coli and some of these other pathogens in the meat. It was the natural enzymes would combat that, and it would also break down the meat and make it more tender, give it more flavor. Well, that's expensive to store that much beef in cold lockers for 2 weeks. And in chasing the almighty dollar, they decided, well, let's speed that up. So now within 24 hours, that cow goes from being butchered to in a plastic bag and thrown in a box and shipped off. And then when it gets there, it's growing all these terrible, unhealthy pathogens. In order to combat that, they soak it, like Carrie said, in anhydrous ammonia, which we use in pesticides and fungicides and herbicides. You can use that to basically make healthy dirt sterile, and we're soaking our meat in this to kill these pathogens, and then we're eating that, and that's supposed to be healthy for our gut. It doesn't sound very healthy. So they soak it in that, then they go through this process and they pelletize it, and then they sell it to companies that are taking other waste meats and they grind it all together in hamburger. So if you're going to the grocery store and getting hamburger, a good share of that's probably pink slime, which they call lean, finely textured meat.
And who knows how many different animals are in it.
Yeah.
And they can, in its essence, started as a beef byproduct. So
Right.
You know, that's probably why they can call it what they do.
Right.
Yeah, finely textured.
Yeah.
Something.
Terrible. Wow. Gotcha. Anything else that comes to your guys' mind, other things that people should know about?
Well, I think like what you saw and what we saw when you buy meat from the store and then you compare it side by side to the meat that you get, from a farm to table source, the flavor is incredibly different. The texture, the look of it, just how it cooks up, the fat that comes out of it. I mean, it's just night and day difference. I think if everybody did that at home, they would 100% change the meat that they're eating.
I hadn't actually bought a hamburger from the grocery store for a very long time, and I thought, well, I'll just buy a package and try this, see what the difference is. Just cooking it. Not even the taste, just cooking it. Cooked so different than the hamburger that we raise. And it was amazing. The color, the texture, everything, let alone the taste and quality of it was just kind of blew my mind. Like, wow, that's pretty amazing. I didn't realize there was such a big difference.
Right, absolutely. And if you have a 500-pound carcass, right, from one cow, how many people can that feed, for how much time? The same weight, in vegetables, the nutrient carryover just isn't there, right? It's such a nutrient dense per pound food that
Yeah, absolutely.
it's so valuable as a resource.
There's some amino acids too that you can only get from meat sources. Like, they have, for people that are on vegetarian diets and stuff, they can take supplements with these amino acids in it that, supplement their vegetarian diet, but those come from animal sources. Like, there's certain essential amino acids that only come from meat sources.
There's another interesting thing too is it tastes really good. They're also trying to, if you can search it out on the internet or whatever, but they're trying to get us to eat insects as a protein source.
Or snakes.
Crickets and snakes.
Crickets, snakes, yeah, and it's happening. They've went to some of that in Europe, and just look it up. It'll blow your mind.
Wow, gotcha. As an alternative in like protein supplement type
Yeah.
deals.
Some of it's to go so far as to, a more sustainable protein source, that they're going to replace beef with these other, protein sources. And
How could breeding billions of insects ever go wrong?
Yeah. Well,
or snakes.
look on the bright side. When you get some of that stuck in your teeth, you just pull out an insect leg, a grasshopper leg, and you've already got your toothpick.
Have you guys had any negative experiences in selling your cattle in the past that it was problematic for you that this is the better way to go, related to, being in the typical system?
Yeah, in the typical system, it's like extremely nerve-wracking. You spend the entire year producing a product, and then you go to the sale and you have one day where you have no control. Someone's going to set the price and you have to take the price. And so it's like this huge gamble that you put all this time and effort throughout the year, all this money invested, and then you're completely helpless when it comes to selling what you get. And some years it's like, hey, the market's up, I did okay, I can try again next year. And some years you're like in the hole before you even start the next year. So yeah, it's very nerve-wracking and disappointing more often than not. And you don't have a lot of flexibility in a traditional system that way. With this system, we can plan out a lot better, and we can produce stuff that is ready to harvest when our customers are ready for it. And
We don't have to be stuck in that traditional system of this is when we calve, this is when we sell. It's just like we can calve whenever we need to, so we always have a supply of meat to butcher throughout the year.
Is this where most of your meals are these days, Josh?
these days, yep. This is breakfast, lunch, and dinner right here. Get up before the sun. Go to bed when it gets too dark to see what I'm doing. She's doing the same thing at home, so
Yeah.
it's usually trying to consolidate what you can, eat what you can in one meal, and roll with it.
Perfect. Let's talk a little bit about the cows themselves. What are the benefits for the cattle being raised this way?
It's certainly more natural for them. A lot of the traditional way of doing things, especially in the finishing process, they're going to a feedlot and they're getting packed in really dense, which is really a breeding ground for disease and stuff. If one cow gets sick and spreads to a bunch of the other cows, a lot of times they're in areas where they're chlorinating the water, and they're being fed a really high concentrated diet, which for cows put them in a state of acidosis. So from the time you start to finish them out on the high concentrate grain diet, you're kind of setting a clock, because the further they go in, the more they get in that state of acidosis. So you're kind of setting the clock that once we start this, you got to butcher them at such and such a time. Whereas the way we finish them, they go off of grass and they'll go into a silage finish program, which technically silage is a grass, but it comes with the added benefit of you've got a little bit of corn mixed in from the actual corn cobs themselves, but it's a high moisture corn, so it's a lot more natural for them. They don't go into that state of acidosis. We could actually go from that ration right back out onto grass the next day and it wouldn't affect them negatively at all. So it's a lot healthier for them, and our belief is that if the cow's healthier, then the product, the beef at the end, will be healthier, and it'll be healthier for us. And it's just a happier way to live, honestly, than being packed in a big pen with thousands of other cattle. To be out in the open range for most of their lives seems like a better way to go for us.
Gotcha. So overall, more natural lifestyle for them up to the very end, and better quality of life throughout the entire process.
Yeah.
That's what you guys are able to provide doing things this way.
Yeah, happy cows are healthy cows.
And better meat.
Yeah, and I also think there's a little bit less stress when you're going to a smaller butcher or packer, because there's just less animals that they're trying to get in all in one day, and just less stress leading up to, a big cattle truck moving in and dropping off 600 cattle or whatever. There's just, you go drop it off, it's in a pen, waits outside, and just a little less stress in the process of butchering.
I like to think of it as you have New York City versus a rural town in America, with these different butcher plants. So,
Gotcha. Kind of mentally, where would you want to be,
yeah.
if you were thinking about your stress levels, perhaps?
Yep.
And we were talking to a guy that runs a feedlot here, and they obviously, there's 200,000 head or so or more, of cattle. They don't have enough water to, provide fresh well water to those animals. And so, yeah, they have to reprocess and recycle all that water and chlorinate it, and then that's what those animals are drinking for however many months of their life, and just before they're being killed. So that can't be good for them or us, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think that our land anyway, that, is used for grazing. It's always been used for grazing. Any, wild animals, or when we brought domesticated animals in, it's always been grazed. And I think that shows that that's kind of the natural way of things. And when you tie the land and how it should be used, and the animal and how it should be fed, those kind of mesh together. It's better for them to be grazing on stuff and rather than be packed together in a small area being fed processed grains and whatever they end up feeding them, using to feed them in the feedlot. But just kind of all goes along with kind of the natural rhythm of the cycle of the earth.
Right. I think some people see cattle, right, and they see that it's a domesticated animal and think, well, how can this naturally fit into the ecosystem? But large grazing herbivores are a key source of so many different environments, right? And it's exactly the same thing here, right? If the cattle aren't eating, well, deer and elk would be eating, and they do, right? You have them around here, living on the same land, right? Large animals, and they fit right into that ecosystem, and it makes a healthier land, a healthier forest floor, healthier pastures, right? And you guys have probably seen that. Yeah,
and then the cattle regenerate the soil that they graze on, by, cow patties everywhere. Well, that replenishes it, just cycle in, cycle out. It's just the process. And there's a lot of people that have to put fertilizers on their crops or their fields for hay or grains or whatever they're producing. And if you're able to just use the cattle to graze the land and kind of recycle what they eat, it just builds the soil nutrients and adds to the grasses that are able to be grown.
You kind of have to go from where we are, right? Like we talked about this a little bit yesterday, there was anywhere from 30 million to 1 billion buffalo roaming this land. Well, we can't go back and get rid of all the people and bring back all the buffalo, right? So you can't go back to there. You just have to go from where we're at and make move forward with the best practices we possibly can. So we're trying to replicate some of those, the way that naturally those ecosystems developed with the way that we graze the cattle. You know, if you just allow the grass to go untouched and to grow, then it'll slow down, it'll stop growing, and then it'll die and fall in on itself, and it becomes less and less productive, kind of chokes itself out. Whereas we bring those cattle in, we trim that back down, and then it stimulates faster growth of the plants there, and that faster growth pulls in a lot of carbon out of the air to grow. And there's a big debate about climate change right now, and whichever side of the debate you end up on, cows are a really great answer to solve those problems, because they keep trimming back that grass and providing a sink for more carbon to be pulled in. And then as far as like ecosystems, you know, you have the cattle out there grazing, and then you have, you know, they leave a cow pie, and then dung beetles come and they'll break that up and they'll spread it out and put it back into the ground, and just it livens up the soil, and there's a whole ecosystem underneath their feet that they help nourish. And if you don't keep doing that, it gets really stagnant, and
the ground becomes almost dead, right?
Yeah, it just doesn't have the same microbes and the same life that it has. The cows, even their hooves walking across the ground breaks up the soil, so you can get more air and oxygen into the soil and oxygenate that, and it provides places for water to pool and then sink into the ground, and then the grass springs out of those hoof prints. So it's just a great system designed by a great creator, and we're trying, instead of trying to outsmart what he already created, we're trying to replicate and learn from, you know, what the master creator created, and try and do our best to manage the way that it was intended to be managed.
You know, your grazing and how you graze it, and how intensely you graze it, and when you rotate it, so that you're not overgrazing and you're, you know, reaching kind of the full capacity of what that piece of land has to offer, and make sure that you're keeping the soil healthy too, so that it can.
I love that you brought that up, because it's, you know, what this is based in, I don't know, but I've seen that stigma out there that cattle destroy the land, and it's like, it's not in the interest of ranchers to destroy the land. They hurt themselves, right? If they don't get to come back next year, they have to find ways to replenish their ground next year if they destroy their own land, right? It's in yours and your cattle's interest, right? If you're seeking to maintain that to the very highest standard that you can.
To optimize what you have.
Winter comes around, you best be ready. Summer ain't for fun till the block's been split. So bring lots of water, a lunch, and maybe, or we get too gone, we'll grab a treat real quick. I wish this place could stay forever this young. Secret I would take to my grave, where the pasture is green and the mountains make you cry, and in the mornings the elk sing, and you never want to say goodbye, say goodbye. Sunset for our eyes, serenade for me and you to remember that light. God, I wanna go back in time, where the pasture is green and the mountains make you cry, and in the mornings the elk sing, and you never want to say goodbye, say goodbye.
know, lots of people talk about ranching, how it's not a 9-to-5 job, right? It's a completely different lifestyle. What does the time commitment look like for you guys? You know, some of you guys are, you know, in other businesses. Meanwhile, you have family, all that. What role does that play? What does the time look like for you guys?
Daylight to dark is not enough.
You're on call 24/7. If something happens, you got to go deal with it.
Right.
It doesn't matter what time of day it is or what day it is. You got to, you know, you're out there doing it. And it's kind of almost like not really a job, because a job has a beginning and an ending time, and you clock out. And, you know, this is just what you do. It's, you know, you get up and you feed the animals, and before you go to bed you feed the animals, and in between there you're fixing stuff or moving stuff or riding stuff or doctoring stuff, or it's just kind of like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen today, you know. You're just kind of out there doing it. So for me, it's not really a job, it's just what I do. And unfortunately, you know, we're able to make some income to be able to do it. And so, yeah, I guess I don't really look at it as a job per se. It's just what I do.
And it's supplemented by us working other places too.
Yeah,
doing other
definitely.
stuff. You know,
It's more like base hours are more like a 5 to 9, and then everything else is overtime.
There you go. How much overtime pay do you get?
About the same as the other pay, 0.
you get some good steaks.
Yeah, there you go.
Self-employed and unemployed are pretty similar. It's just one you actually have to show up and do the work. But the pay's the same.
I actually think, yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, but you make a good point, right? There's other reasons that you choose to live this way, right? That you live this instead of, you know, this being a job.
Yeah, I think we all very much enjoy the stewardship of taking care of the land, taking care of the animals, and having the self-reliance factor of it is important to all of us. So I think that's a big part of it.
I mentioned I grew up on a dairy farm. When we sold the dairy farm, we sold it for a pretty good price, and a lot of friends were asking, like, why are you going and buying another ranch, like, or another farm? Like, why wouldn't you just put that money, invest it, and live off of that for the rest of your life? And I tried to explain it to him in a way that, you know, you go to work 5 days a week so that you can go play on the weekend. And I just choose to play all week.
And work all week.
Yeah, and we love this. It is a hard work. It's a lot of sacrifice, but we love what we do, and we've made that choice to forego the cash and live the lifestyle. And a lot of people choose to get the cash so they can live the lifestyle on the weekends. We just spread it out throughout the week.
Wow. Yeah, so there's a massive impact just from winter to the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Right, and what you're able to do, especially here in this part of Idaho.
And down where we're at, we've got grazing that can occur for most of the year. You know, pasture under water, you know, with under irrigation all year, and with the exception of about a month. And then they have about, oh, I don't know, what'd you say, 5 months of free time? We have about 5 weeks of really cold, so that's the difference.
Yeah.
You know, where we're occasionally have to break a bunch of ice, but you know, that's where I grew up, was doing similar to what they're doing, is fighting the elements more.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a retreat from the winter a little bit. But conversely, you know, up here in the summertime it's super nice, and where we're at it's 100 degrees. So
Absolutely.
There's that.
And the reason this partnership kind of works really well with just the management of the cattle is this place up here in McCall is a great place to graze during the summer because it's cooler. You don't have nearly the fly problems that you have in the hotter climates. The cows gain better because they're more comfortable, and you know, they're not having to fight the heat. Then in the winter we can send the cows down to them where they do have some grass still, and the cows can continue to graze without being stuck up here in 3-4 feet of snow. So they're down in Bruno or McCall, and it's just they're close enough together that it's not really stressful to move the cows back and forth, but it puts them in the best possible scenario for most of the year for them.
Fantastic. So you guys intend to implement this rotation so that you don't have to fight the winters here, but they get the benefit of being in this climate in the summer.
Right.
Yep.
And then they can
They don't fight those summers there, and
not fight those summers down in Bruno. So
Yeah.
that's perfect.
It's kind of like our cows are snowbirds, you know.
That's right. Yeah. And you guys get to play a little bit of that too, probably.
Yeah.
How does your guys' cow's diet kind of compare with other cattle in the American food system? Or let's not say the American food, let's say just the beef we're buying from the store. What does their diet compare like?
Ours is pretty much grass with, at the end we'll do like a silage finish, which I mentioned was technically a grass. But from the time they're born on up, they're grazing out on the pastures, you know, whether it's up here or down there. And then when it comes time to finish, we go to that high moisture corn, that silage finish, because it's kind of the best of both worlds. You have folks that really want just a grass finished animal, and they're really focused on lean meat, but that lacks a lot of flavor personally. And then you have folks that just really want the flavor, and they'll put them on a high concentrate diet, which marbles them out really well, finishes them really well, and they're really juicy and tender and have a good flavor. But there's a health concern both for people that, you know, are concerned about cholesterol and different things, and for the animal itself. Whereas that silage finish is like the perfect mid ground, we believe, to where you get a real good grass finish, but you also get that added benefit of the corn being mixed in with the silage, and so you get a nice marbling and a nice finish, so the flavor's good too. So it's healthy for them, it tastes great to us. It's just kind of the best of both worlds. And typically out in the industry, you'll have, you know, a good amount of time that they'll be on grass, but then they'll go into the feedlot system to where they're packed in with a bunch of animals, and they get really high concentrate diets because they're trying to finish those cattle as quickly as possible. The more time they spend in a feedlot, they're paying per day to have them in the feedlot, and that gets really expensive.
What is the most challenging part of this business? It can be right now, or what has it been up until this point? Difficulties?
I think up until this point, just getting people educated to understand the difference and get them on board with, you know, not just trying to find the cheapest meat, and, you know, so just trying to get the customer base built up is definitely a lot of work, for sure. But yeah, I think we're all just so passionate about what is behind it, you know, that it's worth it to struggle through and get that education out there and try and, you know, let people know that there's a different, better option out there.
Got it. So there's a disconnect in the knowledge of the consumer that you guys are trying to fill at the same time, which, you know, not a lot of businesses have to deal with, right? They know what their people want and they go for that, right? You guys have to also say, hey, this is why, you know?
Yeah, and I think along with that, like, for the most part, most of us would rather be out working than try to market it and have to deal with technology and all the ins and outs of that, and how do we get this word out? How do we sell this? How do we find customers? None of us really want to be the one sitting at the computer and trying to figure all that out. We'd all rather just be doing the work to raise the animal. So that's probably been kind of the biggest learning curve, I think, for all of us, is just figuring out the tech side and marketing, and how do we go about doing this, because now we have to find our buyers, you know, and we have to find multiple buyers, not just one buyer to sell our calf crop to. We've got to find a lot of different people who understand what we're producing and raising and understand what we're trying to sell.
Yeah. other ranchers are just like, well, let's just get our cows sold and at least we'll get to live the life, you know. You guys are wanting to live the life, and you have to, you know,
we have to
be in the business.
market it,
Market it.
the business side of it. So that's been kind of a challenge,
Yeah,
to say the least.
the rancher, they're just willing to, I'm gonna sell my calves on this day, and whatever the market does, that's what it does, and
Haul them to the sale barn.
and they're done with it, which is, convenient, but not the best method of getting it done, for sure, as far as, one, educating the public and getting the best product out there and getting the most for your product to make it a viable way of making a living.
Yeah, it placates the meat companies, so you're always going to be trapped in the same cycle, basically.
Yep, until we get the American public educated about, the downside of what's going on, and then it's a struggle, for sure.
Kind of break up those monopolies by building some smaller packing facilities and more local packing facilities instead of mothballing them, building them back into the communities to benefit everybody.
For you guys, what is the most rewarding part of this?
Waking up every morning and
Seeing me.
absolutely.
All right, second one.
I think as far as education and seeing the light bulb come on for people, like when you did that meat comparison, stuff like that, when they can taste the flavor, people that have been raising their own beef even, and taste the difference, and then, like we've said before, the health benefits of it, that's huge. But as far as lifestyle, it's just being outside. I would way rather be out here than sitting at a desk somewhere.
So I grew up on beef that we've raised my whole life, right? And my parents now, my mom still day works for a ranch, and she gets free grass-fed beef, and when we brought our beef down and grilled some steaks and they tasted the difference, they're like way more on board to buy our meat because of the flavor and the, it's just so much better than to get the free beef.
For me, it's waking up here. If the camera, you pan around, you see how beautiful it is. It's like being connected to this place and being connected to the land and to the animals, and it becomes a part of who you are. It's a curse if you can't do it, and a blessing if you can. And that's why we've formed Field to Fork Meats, is to ensure that we can continue to do this as a lifestyle for us. It's the most amazing place to raise kids. Where they have their own chores and their own responsibilities, and they're out in nature and they're learning from the animals, and there's just so much to learn and so much to connect with and be a part of. Like, I can't imagine doing anything differently for work. It's just it becomes part of what makes you tick.
So motivating to be the steward over this land and these animals, and just daily taking care of them, but then also feeling the satisfaction of doing that. I don't know, every day when I change water and kind of look over everything, and kind of, it's like you're kind of your last round of the day, and you're just like, this feels good. Everything feels like, I can go to bed okay, and everything's taken care of.
Great.
And she used the word steward. Most ranchers will use that word. Most ranchers don't talk in terms of ownership. They talk in terms of stewardship. And I think a lot of us just view it that way, as, we're passing through in our little moment in time. We're trying to do the best that we can with the land that's been left to our stewardship. And we're looking to pass it on to the next generation and teach them to do the same. And each generation, the hope is that we get a little better at what we do, at taking care of that stewardship, and not looking at it as, this is mine, this is, I own this, and I am the master of this. It's being a part of it, a small part of it, and then playing your role.
Imagine how it would be if everyone saw what they did, as their stewardship, something that they were just trying to make better for the next oncomer.
I think just the nature of what we do is pretty humbling anyway. Like any given day, like as soon as you start to feel like you're getting pretty good at something, it finds a way to humble you really quickly. And I think that's what kind of fosters that feeling of we're just a part of this. We're not the masters of it. And because it can be pretty humbling.
Why do customers come to you guys? Why do they choose your product? Why should they choose your beef?
Most of the people that we have that are clients that buy from us are people that know us, and they feel comfortable buying stuff from us because they do know us. And I guess I would feel the same way too if I were in their position. I'd rather know the person who's raising my beef and have some sort of relationship with them, if I were going to buy a product from them. And so I think a lot of it people buy because they tried it because they knew us and had some experience with us, and then they realized that it was what we said it was, and so they continue to buy from us.
No, it's just, if you're going to buy, meat's not cheap. And especially if you're buying in bulk. Some people, they used to just go to a rancher and they'd want to buy a half a beef, for instance. And it was difficult because the rancher just doesn't want to sell half a beef. He wants to sell the whole thing. You can't butcher half a beef, you have to butcher the whole thing. And so you'd have to find somebody else to come in with you. And if you didn't want to have a huge freezer with half a beef, then you had to find 4 people and get a quarter of a beef. And we're kind of taking that out of the equation and saying, hey, we'll manage that network for you. Just come and tell us what you want, and we'll give you what you want, and then we'll find buyers for the rest of it. But in order to make that kind of investment, like, you kind of want to know it's legit, right? It's like kind of scary if you go online, you're going to make a large purchase. You're like, is this a real company? Are these real people? Am I actually receive what I think I'm going to receive? And I think that's why most of our customers, like, they have to kind of form a relationship with us first. This is something I'm going to be feeding my family. And especially if you're health conscious and you're thinking about, I'm going to be feeding this thing to make my family healthier, then you want to make sure that the claims are real. And if you can come here to our place and actually look at it and talk to us and understand how we manage, then it builds confidence, and then people trust it. So that's why we're sitting down with you, is just to get awareness out to more people of who we are, what we do, how we manage, to just build that trust factor in that relationship with people.
If more ranchers went this way, it would really only benefit you, because it would train the American buyer, right, what is good and what they should be looking for in their food and in what they choose to buy, versus, like we were kind of talking about yesterday, where you have these companies who kind of all support each other, right, in controlling everything else, right, and keeping everyone in the dark. So it would be fantastic if all American ranchers kind of started working with who they knew locally, and
it's going to be crucial to make this shift. That more ranchers do it this way to upset what's going on right now.
There's already too few ranchers for the supply that we have. That's why we're a net importer now of beef. So this isn't a competitive thing at all from rancher to rancher. In fact, a lot of ranches are heading this direction, and we encourage it. It's going to be necessary that most ranches go this direction, where they start to sell directly to consumers in order to be able to provide what the needs are and to educate people as well. So yeah, it's not a thing like, hey, we're sneaking into this way of competing against somebody else and putting them out of business. We encourage all ranchers to do this. We encourage people in different locations to find somebody locally. We can ship pretty much anywhere. Like, we've shipped beef to North Carolina, and we're in Idaho, and it arrives frozen and fresh, ready to go in the freezer. But we'd prefer it if we could service our local community and take care of all of our needs here locally, and then have somebody in North Carolina deal with a rancher in North Carolina. And that's because it is more just about community building than it is just about selling beef. You know, we want to kind of reconnect people, and it's easier to do that the more local that you are.
Yeah. And this is starting to happen in a couple different locations around the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Quite a few.
quite a few. It's starting to get out there, and you guys probably picked up some information and ideas from some other businesses you've seen around. And
People need to have more choices. You know, consumers need to have more choices so that they can make a choice and get a cheaper product if they want to. And we're not against competition at all, but if you're going to give people a choice, you really need to give them an honest choice. And when you're not telling people where it's coming from, they really don't have a choice, do they? It's like if they decide, hey, I want to buy from an American rancher in a system that I understand and I know is going to be safe, then it needs to be labeled such. And they've done away with that with beef, to where, you know, they did the carve out with the country of origin where you didn't have to label it, and then they came back and say, okay, now if you are importing from somewhere else and you repackage it here, you can call it product of the USA. So now it's just plain out deceit, to where we're saying this is an American product when it wasn't born here, it wasn't raised here, it wasn't butchered here, it was just repackaged here. And so we're not against competition, but make it honest competition where people do have the choice. If I want to buy cheap beef from South America, I can buy cheap beef from South America. If I want to buy really healthy beef that I know how it's maintained, then I want to have that choice. But people need to be educated as to where it's coming from. And right now we really don't have that. And the only way that you can ensure that as a consumer is to buy directly from a rancher, you know.
Yeah.
That's the only way, because the packaging won't tell you.
And I think it's pretty fair to say that the only way you're going to get like dry aged beef that's hung for a couple weeks is to get it this way, because anything from a store, anything online in those boxes is all imported meat. Well, not necessarily 100% imported, but it did not hang. You know, it's been through all these processes we've talked about.
Gotcha. I think that's an easy question everyone watching this could ask themselves. When you go to the grocery store, do you feel like you have a choice? When you look, I never felt like that walking into a grocery store and look at the aisles. Like, have I ever felt like I have a choice of what I'm buying here? No, really. I'm just now like thinking about the way you said that. Like, you walk into the grocery store, into Walmart, and you look at what your options are. It's like, yeah, you don't really have a choice.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
They kind of make you think you do, though. You know, they label stuff as organic or product of the USA. That makes you think that you're making a better choice than this over there. But and not to say that organic isn't organic at Costco, you know, but just because it's organic, you know, has it?
what does that mean? Right?
What does that mean? And I mean, with as much, you know, misleading information that there has been in the industry to let people believe that they are getting a good, clean product, you know, I would say the only way you know you're getting a good, clean product is to get it directly from your rancher.
Go visit them. Yeah.
For sure.
You can see it yourself.
And most ranchers aren't trying to hide anything. They're more than happy to tell people how they manage things and why they do it the way that they do. You know, it's just, we're not trying to hide anything. We want people to know.
Yeah. There's another great way, right? If it feels like something's being hidden from you, that might be a red flag, you know.
Yeah.
If they're happy to talk to you about it, you're on the right course. Okay, so how are you guys selling your products right now? How can people find you if we were to?
Fieldtoforkmeat.com is the
Okay.
website. That's probably the easiest way. We are on Instagram and Facebook. Follow us, like us.
That's right. Yep. So people can go online and they can place an order through your website right now. That's up and going.
Or they can contact us directly if there's something they're looking for and it's not on the website. They're welcome to contact any of us directly and package up anything specific that they want that we have in stock right then, or you know, schedule something ahead of time. If we don't have it then, we can schedule it out.
We also have a newsletter that goes out, and if you go on the website fieldtoforkmeat.com, you can sign up for the newsletter, and then we'll send out a weekly letter to you just telling people what we're doing, talking about different issues in the industry that are happening currently, and also like offers. If we do sales, we'll offer it to our email subscribers first. So that's a great way to keep in contact, is just to sign up for that email list on the website. And then it's, out of sight, out of mind kind of deal. If you have that email coming in once a week, just reminding you of what's available to you, then when the time comes to fill the freezer and buy some meat, then you'll know where to go.
Great way for them to learn and feel connected to it.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where you get kind of more of our long form information. Something new comes up, an issue comes up. One that's coming up right now is like JBS, huge, biggest beef company in the world. It's out of Brazil. They're trying to become a publicly traded company right now. And so we'll talk about issues like that in the newsletter, just to kind of educate people on what's happening and why, and what they should feel about it, or how we feel about it, and let them decide how they feel about it. But we just address those type of issues there on the newsletter as well.
That's great. So they can stay up to date on deals you guys are doing, what you have available, and they can learn firsthand what's going on in the beef industry. That's fantastic.
And people can even pre-buy, like if they want to plan ahead. A lot of people want to plan ahead and fill a chest freezer. They can go onto the website and help schedule when they want to receive it. So we have different harvest dates. They can pick a harvest date when they want it. So if they're looking down the road and they say, hey, I want to stock my freezer, but right now I've got too much stuff in there, so I want to do it this fall, then there's a way to do that, and that way you can stay in control. You always know that there's going to be something available. You don't end up in a situation where you log on and all of a sudden you're like, oh, they're out of stock. I don't have anything. And it helps us plan that way. So if we know how many people are wanting beef, then we plan accordingly. So it becomes more of a kind of a mutual relationship in that regard.
Okay, so last question. If you guys had a megaphone, you could just talk to everyone in America right now, what would you say? Like if you could just tell every American, what thing would you say? We'll ask each one of you.
Buy beef local. It's better for you. It's better for the environment. It's better for your country.
Okay. Perfect.
I echo that. I mean, that's really what we have to say. That's what we're, my thing probably, my main focus is probably the health issues on it, just because I've seen it in family, how that makes a big difference. And we talked about, the diabetes thing and the carnivore diet, and I've seen that. I have a close family member that has literally went off insulin, so yeah. But that's what Jennifer said right there.
Yep.
That's the megaphone's message.
Eat local beef and save your health.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I would just echo the whole community part of that is, in such a polarized world, I think the more that we reconnect with people locally and with the people around us, the better off we'll all be. So buy local and build relationships locally.
Great.
I think just to add to that is look for the truth in everything. Like sometimes we're deceived by a lot of different things, and particularly in this industry is just look for the truth of it, look deeper, and you'll find what you need to do for your family. And there's a lot of things out there that our people in our country don't realize that it's happening, and so search for that truth and what is really happening. Be aware of what's happening around you.
Say goodbye.